Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, Hack the World Cybersecurity. In this lecture, we'll go through SSH. So in this video, we'll briefly explain how SSH works, how where the SSH is used, and SSH authentication. We'll see some examples of SSH commands. At the end, in real time, we'll try to connect to some remote server using SSH. Yeah, we'll get started. So SSH, short for Secure Shell, is a network protocol that provides secure way for two computers to connect remotely. SSH employs encryption to ensure that hackers cannot intercept the traffic between two connected devices. So it mainly works on layer 7, that is application layer. In the last video, we discussed OSI models and the protocols used in the. It's created to replace insecure login programs such as Telnet or Login FTP. Before SSH, people were widely using Telnet, that is to work on port 23. So the problem with that was uh, the data transferred between the client and server was in the plain text. It was not encrypted. So SSH almost replaced these unencrypted protocols where secure cell is used. We know it can be used for connecting to a remote machine. It can be used for tunneling. Tunneling is basically a method of transporting data over an encrypted secure shell connection. It can be used for file transfer, for example, SFTP, secure file transfer, and it can be used for secure management of network infrastructure components. So we'll see how SSH authentication works. As I said, like it mainly uses two types of authentication. One is password-based authentication, one is public key-based authentication. In password-based authentication, it uses username and password. For authentication, in public key-based authentication, it uses a pair of private and public key. So in this diagram here, it explains how the public key-based authentication works. Here you can see that in the step 1, client sends an SSH connection request to a server, and server replies to the client with a challenging string. So it is a random string generated from the server. So when the client receives that challenging string, client encrypts a string using private key and sends it back to the server. So now the server will have the encrypted challenging string. So the challenging string, we know it is encrypted by a client private key that can be only decrypted by the client's public key. So the server will have the server's public key. So it will decrypt the encrypted challenging string using public key of the client. So once if the decrypted content and the challenging string, if both are matched, so authentication is successful. Like next we'll see like how actually this happens in real time, and we can also see like we'll also see how the public key and private key pairs are generated. We'll see that. So these are simple SSH commands that are widely used. So we know accessing a server. For this, we'll just type SSH, we'll type username, and we can give the remote host address or the IP address of the remote machine. So we can execute remote commands on the remote host. That is basically same, like at the end, we can give the command. For example, if you want to list the directories on that remote machine, we can give ls here. And secure copy, we can copy a file from local machine to a remote server or remote server to a local machine. So this command basically is to copy a file from local machine to a remote server. So basically we type SCP and we can give a source file path and username at host IP. and colon, we give the destination path where the file should be copied on the remote host. So, okay, we'll practically see how this authentication works and how like we'll try to execute some commands. So basically what I'm doing is I have a server that is metasploitable 2. So like in the next lecture, I will make a video on like how to install this metasploitable 2 server. This is the Linux server. So we know every server will be associated with the IP. So with that IP, we can connect and access the server. So I'll just check the IP address of this metasploitable 2 Linux machine server that is using ipconfig command. So here we can see that like the IP address is 192.168.79.129. So basically what I try to do is I will try to connect to this remote server that is 192.168.79.129 using my local machine. So my local machine is a Kali Linux machine. So I'll try to connect to that remote server using my Kali Linux machine. So I will just go to a command line tool and like I'll just type SSH. We know this is the command. We type SSH, username, and the IP address of the remote host. So first I will explain like how the username and password based authentication works with SSH. So I have configured two types of authentication here. So for one user, that is MBB, this is the username. So for this, I have configured uh, username and password based authentication. So I'll just click on enter. We'll see. It should ask for the password. Yeah, it's asking for the password. I'll just type the password. Yeah, currently now here we can see that we are connected to this metasploitable machine. Here we can see that like username, it's a Linux machine. Yeah. Okay, I'll just log out from this server and I will try to connect using public key and private key pairs. So for again other user account that is MSF admin, I have configured SSH key based authentication. So the keys are basically generated using RSA. So when I like just click on enter, it will basically check if there are any keys associated with this MSF admin user account. If the key exists on the local machine, it will try to connect using the SSH keys. If the keys not exist, it will try to connect using username and password. So as I told, like this MSF admin account has SSH keys. I'll just click on enter. So it should connect using SSH keys now. Yeah, here we can see that enter passphrase per key. So it is trying to connect to remote machine using the key. So I just for extra protection, I have added a key password for accessing this keys. So I'll just type the password. So it's asking for a passphrase. Yeah, I'll just type it. Yeah, we now log into a Metasploitable using MS admin. I'll just log out from this. Like so we understood like how the two types of authentication works. Like actually we see in detail like how this SSH makes a connection in the background. For this, I will start with the username and password based authentication. I will just type -v. So it will basically shows all the connections that are executing in the background. So I'll just type that. Yeah, here you can see that the next authentication method is password, correct? Yeah, this is username and password based authentication. I'll just log out from this server again. I'll show it for MS admin. That is public key and private key pair. Oh, sorry. Just a second. I just missed the command. I should type ISP. So it will explain like what's happening in the background. Yeah, here it shows that like next authentication method is public key. So basically this one is using public key based authentication. So I'll log out from the server again. So we just like saw like how these two types of authentication works using the password authentication and public key based authentication. And like we'll execute one more command that is we'll execute SCP command. We'll try to copy a file from my local machine to a server. So this is the command. We know SCP will give the file name. Basically before that, I'll just list all the things in my directory. Yeah, I'll just move to desktop. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to copy this pass.txt to my remote server. Yeah, here we are that. So SCP file name that is pass.txt and user account msfadmin and the server name colon and where the file should be copied. I'm copying it to home folder and a home folder and a msfadmin folder. I'll just click OK. It's asking for a key. So here you can see that like it basically copied the that file to a remote server. We'll just log into a remote server and see if the file is actually copied there. Yeah, I'm in the remote server. I'll just type pwd, that is present working home directory. Present working directory, I'm under home and MSM admin. This is where I copied the file. I'll just list the files under this folder. I'll just do ls. So here you can see that the past.txt is there. The file is copied. Yeah, thank you guys. So if you have any questions, you can contact me using this email, hackthewordmbb@gmail.com. If you want to watch quality content, please subscribe to my channel. So in this play series, I'll basically we'll go through all basic Linux commands that are really needed for a security professional and for a student. Yeah, thank you.